Hello and welcome to our February book club. Thank you for joining me this evening or later, whichever you are watching. This is our first renamed book club. So we haven't taken any time off, so it feels weird to say we're relaunching because we aren't technically relaunching. It simply has been renamed. And as part of a lot of exciting plans that I have for the upcoming year, I've decided to put a lot more focus on this book club. And thanks to some great feedback from some of you guys, I have some really exciting plans that I hope you all will enjoy. And so this is Logos and Mythos Book Club. And if you are using any kind of social media, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you could use the hashtag LAM Book Club. And that's how you can kind of find and keep up with other people who are following along with the same thing. And that way you can get some new recommendations of books to read from other people. So I hope it'll be a fun way for us to connect with readers all over the world, get some recommendations that maybe we otherwise wouldn't, and just have a chance to share our love of reading with each other. So that's kind of some of the goals that I have going forward with this. And as we continue through the night, I have a few things. I've got a list of things that I was going to talk about, but every book club will probably be a little different depending on who shows up live, if we have questions along the way. If not, then I'll just kind of stick to my script, but we should typically stay around 30 minutes, definitely no more than that, sometimes less. So that's kind of the format of how we'll do it. And then I'm going to tell you a few other things about the book club in a little bit. But for right now, I wanted to once again thank you guys who took the time to respond to the surveys that I've been putting out. So I had 2 surveys out recently, and one of them was specifically for the book club, and another was to help me kind of get an idea of who my ideal reader is. So someone who enjoys reading the kinds of books that I am writing currently and will be writing. And the reason for that survey was to help me understand how to reach out to those people, because we all have different types of books that we enjoy reading, and we all come from various backgrounds. Guys, girls, we're all a little different, but to figure out what kind of people actually want to read what I'm writing, that way when it comes time for me to do some marketing and maybe even do some advertising, I can better understand who my target audience is. So that way I'm not bothering people who really don't care to read what I'm writing, and that way I can actually reach the people who do want to read it. So those are a couple of the reasons for that survey. And it wasn't the most scientific survey, but it was my first stab at it. So I did learn a few things, and was very thankful for those who did respond to that one. And then my survey for the book club, I really appreciate you guys answering that. And I actually came across a few things that I wasn't expecting. So I learned some things that I just really kind of took me by surprise in some cases, and really helped me figure out exactly how I wanted to relaunch this. So the first thing I found was something that I kind of suspected but wasn't sure about, and that was that most of you guys are on some sort of social media. I mean, obviously, if you're watching this on Facebook, you're on Facebook. Okay, so I understand that, but I did put this survey out to people who aren't just my followers on Facebook. So I put this out to people who get my email newsletter, and I put this out to people on Twitter as well. So I didn't just send it to you guys. So I did find out that everyone's on social media who responded in some form or fashion, and most people are on Facebook. So that does seem to be the most popular of the social media networks, which was kind of what I was thinking for my reading audience. I've noticed, and I don't know if everyone would agree with this, I would be interested to see what other writers have found, but just in my personal adventures on social media. It seems that Facebook is the best place to really kind of connect with readers. Twitter is better for connecting with other writers, which is a huge encouragement, to have kind of a writing community behind you. And so I'm laughing because my brother and husband are chatting back and forth. That's hilarious. Anyway, and then on Instagram, that seems to be a really good mixture of readers, writers, and then another thing, and this was my main reason for getting on Instagram, there are a lot of book bloggers who take gorgeous pictures, absolutely gorgeous pictures of books and post to Instagram a lot. And if you've ever been on Instagram, it's a lot more focused on photos, which of course I enjoy because I do have a background in photography. So I like that aspect of it, but I am brand new there and I'm still feeling my way out there. But I've liked what I've seen so far. And I know a lot of friends who really seem to be enjoying Instagram over the other social media networks. So that was one of the things that I learned through this survey. And then another thing was I was encouraged to see that you guys have been watching my book clubs later if you can't catch it live, which is great. That's the point. And that's why, and this was something that I think maybe not everyone was aware of, but the book club isn't just this monthly chat. So I will be posting every Monday a post on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So all three of them, I'll have a post going on there for the book club. And if you use the hashtag LAM Book Club, Logos and Mythos Book Club, then that way we can all keep up. If you aren't posting directly under the post that I put, you can also just kind of do your own thing. And if you use the hashtag, then I can find you. And so that way we can all kind of see what everyone's reading, what you're recommending or what maybe you're not recommending, but that might vary depending on what you got reading. And then, so another thing, and this was the most interesting thing and something that I was not expecting. One of my questions was, what is the most interesting aspect for you watching the book club live once a month? And all but one person who responded chose the one that said, interesting tidbits about the literary world in general. I really wasn't expecting that, so I'm really kind of excited. So I'm going to try to incorporate some of those things a little more each month. And so for this month, what I wanted to share with you guys is I realized that I have social media presence on, these three different platforms, like I've been explaining, and how each one is a little different. I also have my newsletter subscribers. So once a week, those folks get my email that has a link to that week's blog post, as well as some other stuff. And then, of course, I have my website. My blog goes up every Thursday. I have a new post. And, I do some other things like that. So you may not know all of the different things that I do. So I wanted to kind of mention those. And then also tell you, in case you didn't know, that my plan is to be an indie author. Okay, and so what that means is that I will be publishing my own work. Now, that over the years, self-published authors have really kind of been frowned upon by some people in literary circles, but that really isn't the case anymore. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we have a lot of just incredible authors who are taking their writing very seriously, and they understand it to be a business. And we have authors who are being traditionally published who feel the same way, and they very much look at what they're doing as a business. And I think that mindset shift has really helped with authors who are going all of the different directions. Okay, so traditionally published, you can probably imagine, means that you're going to seek an agent, and from there, a publisher to publish your work, or sometimes you can go straight to a publisher, depending on the type of publisher that you're looking to get involved with, or what kind of books you write. Okay, so that's traditional publishing, and that's kind of, when you think of authors, that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind because that's traditional. It's in the name. So that's just what we're used to. And then you have indie authors. I just like that title better than self-published. Just it kind of breaks down any of those final barriers or any of those final misconceptions. Indie authors are actually quite serious about what they do. And the real serious ones will hire editors, they hire cover designers, they hire people to help them format. There's a lot of seriousness that goes into that business. So it's not just, hey, I want to publish my memoirs and I'm going to type them up on a typewriter and put them into a binder and ship them out. That's not what it's like anymore. So there's definitely been a shift over the years. And I'm very excited to see, and this is what ties in with the tidbits on the literary world, I've been very encouraged to see a lot of book festivals, a lot of different things like that, just leaders in the literary world, in the publishing world, who have recognized that authors like me are very serious and that we are putting out quality work, and even better, readers like you are realizing that we are putting out quality work for you. And so that's very exciting. So that would be my little literary world tidbit for this month. And there is a third kind of author that I'll quickly mention, and that's a hybrid author. And a lot of authors may choose to traditionally publish some of their works and self-publish others. And they're very often, I've heard several stories of authors who publish their own work and then they get picked up by a publisher. And so that's kind of cool to hear about. So anyway, in all this, I've been writing. I took most of January to focus on my business and where I'm going with my business. And so I wrote a business plan. It was like 30-something pages. So, serious stuff. I really am taking it seriously. And thought through everything, all of my goals, everything that I want to do over the next 6 years. Typically a business plan is like 5 years, but I have number issues. So I had to get to like 2025 because that seemed a little bit more round. Anyway, so there you go. There's one of my weird issues for you. You get a glimpse into that. So it's technically a 6-year business plan, but I will be launching my own press, and you'll see why I call this book club Logos and Mythos Book Club. You're going to keep seeing that name. That's the name on my blog. It's an important name to me because it sums up who I am. It sums up how I love the creative part, the mythos part, and I also like the logical, deeper thinking part. And I try to bring both of those together in everything that I write. And I hope that it comes through in an enjoyable, readable way. And that's the goal anyway. So, and then also another thing that I noticed, a lot of people really liked my book recommendations for kids. So I'll be working on some more of those. And it is genetic. My brother said it's genetic. We all kind of have this issue with numbers. Like our mom has to have an even number of ice cubes in her glass. So we all know that. So when we fix her drink, we know exactly how many ice cubes she needs in her glass. Our dad, on the other hand, has no ice in his. So there you go. More interesting behind the scenes tidbits for you. So I am working on some more recommendations for kids, and I'm going to hopefully get my kids involved with that. I asked them a while ago if they would like to start writing reviews that I can put in my newsletter. And they're super excited about it, but they just haven't done it yet. So we'll see if I can kind of kick them in the right direction and get them to actually start doing that. Yeah, poor Tony is questioning his marriage choices at this point. So those were a couple of things. And then another thing, And this is something else, another reason that I'm really focusing on my book club this year is, well, first of all, okay, before I was a writer seeking to become a published author, like before I got to that point, I've always been a reader, okay? So I love to read, and I know that you love to read. And so book clubs are just a huge thing. And I just enjoy book clubs. I miss having the in-person book clubs that I used to belong to, and I have great and fond memories of those. But I also know that a lot of us are super, super busy, right? So we can't necessarily read one certain book that a whole group is reading in a month and then get together in person to discuss it. Sometimes that just doesn't fall into our busy schedules. And also, you know, and this is the sad thing, we can only read so many books in a lifetime, right? So you have to choose, I can't remember where we heard it, but choosing to read a book is choosing to not read 10 other books, basically. So I personally like to take those choices very seriously and be careful with what books I give my time to. So I may not necessarily want to read the same book that other people do, but I do read a lot. Well, it kind of goes up and down with the seasons of my life, but I read a good deal for the most part. So this way we can share what we're reading, and when we go through those times where we're not really sure what we're going to read next, or maybe we want to read something outside of a genre that we typically read, we can ask for recommendations. And that way we can all kind of share, oh, okay, you don't usually read mysteries, but you really want to read a mystery. Well, hey, I just read this one last month and I really enjoyed it. I think you would like it. That kind of thing. So that's kind of been my thought process and my goal and my desire for the book club. So that's another part of it. And as I move forward to being published, now I do have the short story that is published in the anthology, the Crux anthology. But as I move forward to publishing my own novels, I want to have more interaction with book clubs in general. And that's part of my plan, is to be able to meet with book clubs in my area where I live, but also to meet with book clubs all over the world, because thanks to technology like this, I can do that. And how cool is that? Like, I can meet with a book club in Canada or Mexico or wherever, Australia. I have some writer friends in Australia. So it's a really cool thing to have this technology available to where I can do those kinds of things. So I definitely want to stay very in touch with readers and with book clubs and with all of that kind of thing, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's why I'm writing. I'm writing so someone can read the stories that I'm creating. And that's the point. So it all kind of comes together. So let's see. What else was I going to talk about? So if you guys have any questions or anything, you want to recommend any books, go ahead and you can feel free to comment and put those in at any point. And if you're watching it later, feel free to comment as well. If you have a question about a book, or if you're looking for a book to read, if you have something in mind, comment and I will definitely respond to you. So either way, this will be a very interactive book club. And I already told you a little bit about my business plan and kind of what I've been doing over the past month. And then I am going to move on to some recommendations. Okay, so I have read a few really good books over the past few months. Now, I can't remember, I think I may have mentioned this one in our last book club in January, but I read Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. And it's one of those books that kind of gets you up off the couch and moving. She puts things in just very plain terms and lets you know in no uncertain terms that, hey, you might be having a bad day, and everybody has bad days, but get up off the couch, wash your face, move on with your life. It's a really good book to kind of keep you steering and pushing toward the goals that you've set for yourself, whatever those may be, just general life goals, business goals, any kind of goals. So that was a good read. And then I read Final 42 by my friend Christy Decker, and that was an excellent book about police officers in Texas. Her husband happens to be a police officer in Texas, so she kind of knows what she's talking about, because this book focuses on the families of the officers. So you get the day-to-day on the shift with the officers themselves, but you also get a lot of the behind the scenes of the family and, you know, what's going on behind the closed doors. And I really, really appreciated this book because Christy writes in a very candid way. She also really opens your eyes to the fact that these men and women every single day put their lives on the line. A split-second decision, if you take an additional second to make a decision, that could affect everything for yourself and for your family. And so I just really appreciated the way that she wrote this book, and I think that it is a great testament to our officers. So I appreciated that. And I actually have some friends of mine right now. He is a police officer, and his wife, and they are both reading this book right now. So, and I think that they're really enjoying it. Last I heard, they're really enjoying it. And I know I did. So that's Final 42. And then I read this book. It's called Bleeding Heart, and it's by another writer friend, Elizabeth Rawls, who, interestingly enough, is a fellow Crux crew member. So she has a story in the Crux anthology. This is a collection of some of her poetry, and something that makes this even more interesting. She wrote this with her mom. So her mom has some of her poetry in here, which I thought was really neat. So they put this together, and I really enjoyed it. This is what I would definitely consider this to be Christian poetry. In fact, I ordered this copy. I read the e-version, and then I ordered 2 copies. I ordered one for myself, and I ordered one for my church library, because I think that some of the people at our church will really enjoy it as well. So that's another one that I have finished. And now, one other book that I just finished is called A Creativist Compendium by Orna Ross. And it was very interesting. I don't agree with everything that she said, but it's very much about understanding how our minds work in both a conscious or the conscious state. So how we typically look at the world around us and how we think most of the time, and the creative state, and how we can kind of train our minds to be a little bit more in that creative state, and therefore help in the creative endeavors that we have, especially. So of course, as a writer, she was talking specifically to other writers, but she also brought in, some other creative outlets and business even, and things like that. So I found some very interesting things in that. That was actually a free download from just joining her newsletter, I think. And so I did enjoy that read, and I learned some things from that. And then, so the rest of, I don't know how long it's going to take me, but going back to the business plan, I also was looking for similar authors to the styles of books that I will be writing, so that I could kind of see what they are doing, what kinds of books they're writing, and, kind of understand a little better what is selling to the kinds of readers that I think I'm writing toward, if that makes any sense. So I will be reading several fantasy type books, and I will also be reading some literary fiction. So this is the first one, and I've actually just started this. This is The Assassin's Apprentice. I think this is I can't remember now. I know this is a series. I can't remember how many books it is, but this is by Robin Hobb. And I've been looking over her website and kind of reading some of her blog posts and reading more about her and some of her questions that she's answered. And I'm very fascinated with her. And I would love to meet her one day, but I know she's not doing quite as many appearances as she used to. So I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to, but I am enjoying what I'm reading so far. So I have her. I also have Brandon Sanderson and Joe Abercrombie. And those are the other fantasy authors whose works I will be reading, who seem to be, from the little bit that I could figure out, they seem to be along the same lines of what I am working toward with my Elspeth series. And then for literary fiction, I can't remember the names of the two off the top of my head. I think it's Anne Pancake was one of them, and I can't remember the name of the other one whose book I was going to read. But it seems a little bit more difficult to find good literary fiction that's similar to what I'm trying to write. I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what literary fiction is, and I'm specifically writing Southern literary fiction. So that kind of narrows it a little bit more. And I know there's a lot out there, but it seems from a lot of the blurbs of books that I read, it's just a little bit different. So I don't know if I'm doing things a little bit outside the box with the way that I'm writing. I mean, I definitely am with fantasy, and that's something that I kind of figured out through all of this research that I've been doing. I figured out that it seems like I am combining epic and high fantasy with tiny dashes of low fantasy, which most of you may not really care about that. Some of you might, I don't know. Anyway, it's just something I learned and have found interesting and look forward to diving into more. So if you guys know of any authors who write kind of that mashup of fantasy and also literary fiction, Southern literary fiction, contemporary Southern literary fiction, so I can kind of narrow it a little bit more for you. I know a lot of times people think they hear literary fiction and they have nightmare flashbacks to lit class in college. And they think no plot, no storyline, nothing ever really happens. It's very, let's see, what were some of the things? There's an agenda behind it. Those are some of the feedback that I got, because I was curious to know what people think when they hear literary fiction. So that was part of my survey. But I'm trying not to be like that. I want my book to be very readable. I want it to be fast-paced. I want it to be full of action, but I also want it to have deep character development and a lot of other things. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for. So if you guys have any recommendations for me in either of those genres, I would really appreciate it. I'd love to hear those. So I'm going to look over my list here. I don't think I had anything else I was going to say. I think next month, in keeping with trying to throw out kind of a literary world tidbit for you guys, I thought I would talk a little bit about reviews. And over the next month, I will be, well, the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be focusing on my business plan and what I've learned from that, and why I think writing a business plan is a great idea, not just for authors, but for everyone, regardless of what business you're in or just for your life. To have a life plan, whatever that may look like for you, is a great idea. So those will actually be my next 2 blog posts. And then I'll probably have a short story thrown in there at some point, because I'm trying to get one of those a month. And then I want to write about what it means to leave a kind review. I've been posting that a lot, leave a kind review. Well, what does that mean? What am I talking about? And so just talk a little bit about how you can leave reviews for authors, why it's important that you do, and kind of how to go about that. Because I think that there are a lot of different schools of thought of how to review a book. And so I wanted to share with you from a writer's point of view what is actually helpful and what's not. Okay, so that'll be next month. So I hope you guys have a great month. I hope that you are enjoying reading whatever it is that happens to be holding your bookmark right now. And I will see you in March for our next Logos and Mythos Book Club.